We are going to be using shapes to draw some buildings and also showing some space and overlapping. So the first thing we want to do is start out with some basic shapes of a building, of some buildings. And I like to use rectangles. Make sure you're showing different levels. And these are going to be our buildings in the front. I'm going to put some tops on a couple of these. And some details. After I have details on the buildings in the foreground, I want to make some shapes in the background that also show what might be some buildings back here in the background. And then along the top of the paper, I want to do this one more time. I can think of these buildings also leaving the edge of the paper. And really just focusing on these shapes. I'm going to finish creating the details in the buildings of the foreground, and also think about some other fun things I can put in the very, very foreground of the work. Okay, now that I have some details here on the buildings that are closest to us, again, I want to think about what to do down here. I'm going to go ahead and draw a sidewalk with people walking and then some cars driving along out front. Afterward, I'll talk to you about how we're going to use shading or value and how we're going to finish up. All right, so now I've got some more details in the front. of the, in the foreground of the artwork, in the very foreground, I have the buildings on the street, and then 2 layers of shapes here. This can all be done with a pencil, or we can use color. What I'd like for you to do is to, if you're using a pencil, make sure you have a lot of details, and we would shade these middle buildings a light gray, the shapes that are behind the buildings in the front. The buildings in the very back, we're going to shade dark, and then we can again add more details. I'm going to go ahead and use some colored pencils, and I'm going to add some color to the buildings in the front, and then use the same color to shade lightly the buildings in the middle, dark shading for the ones in the back, and I'm going to add some color to my details in the very foreground of the work. Now that I have added color and more details to the foreground, I'm going to use the single color to finish the middle ground buildings and those in the back. Again, I'm going to use the same color for both of these layers of buildings. I'm going to press down lightly for these in the middle and harder to make the ones in the background darker. So now we see we have our middle ground with our lighter value and the background with the darkest value. If you'd like to add some details or some color in that sky area, you are welcome to do that. Again, this should be pretty fun for you because I want you to use your imagination and just focus on shapes, and then again, your foreground, middle ground, and background. I look forward to seeing what you make.